in the 2 minutes before we begin, can I just have you guys state your names and your shows?
Sure. You're looking at me, so I will start.
Jordan.
Hi, my name is Jordan Cobb.
Yeah,
I'm
it
the
is.
creator of Here Be Dragons, Giannis Descending.
It's
wow.
late.
I know the name of my own shows. And the upcoming Primordial Deep.
Woo!
Hi, I'm Caitlin Statz. I am the writer and creator for The White Vault, Liberty, and Fast Horizon.
Woo! You guys have your own.
Ooh, okay. Hi, I am Eric Saris, and I am one of the co-creators of Marsfall and some other projects that will be coming out soon.
And I'm Jared Smith. I'm the writer-director of The Phenomenon.
Woo! Hi, I'm Sarah Ray Werner, and I am the creator of Girl in Space. Woo! And your moderator. I'll be moderating today. I'll also probably just be talking a lot. Okay. So my alarm that my therapist set for me for my 9 p.m. "How are you feeling?" alarm just went off. I'm feeling really happy to be here looking at all of you. You can tell my therapist I said that. She's going to be really proud of me for checking in. But it's 9 o'clock, which also means that we're going to start tonight's panel. And so we heard the names and the names of the shows of each of these people. I'm pretty sure that each person on this panel does more than one thing for their show as well. And so we're going to get into a little bit what it means to be a creator, what it means to be a producer, what it means to be a writer, what it means to be all these things, what it means to wear multiple hats when you're creating something. I think we're just going to have a good casual conversation tonight about the creation side, from idea to upload. You see, I took that tagline from the thing. See? I know what I'm talking about. All right. Okay. Let's see. So I'd really like to open this up by asking our panelists, and you can do this however you want. If you want to do popcorn style, if you want to just talk, if you have an answer, if you want to go down the line, you can. In your mind, what makes for a really good audio story? We're starting with the tough ones. And then they'll get tougher.
I can jump in. Yeah, you can. So I think kind of when you're thinking about what story is going to work in an audio drama, it's thinking about first the medium itself, just audio drama and audio sonic only medium. So it's not thinking about just what story do I want to tell, but what story is going to be most compelling in this medium. You know, something that you can really look at the strengths of what a non-visual audio only story can be, and find a way to lean into those strengths and kind of make the medium work for you. So thinking about not just the story, but the medium itself. If you embrace that, then that's, you know, only going to make your show stronger for it.
I love that.
And once you, I'm going to say, get over that hurdle of choosing an audio medium, deciding that's how you're going to tell your story, you're still going to want the cornerstone of every single type of narrative fiction, and you're going to want the character. Because it doesn't matter if you have the greatest story, the greatest sound design, if people don't relate to your characters, they're still not going to listen.
I'd also like to add, it's really important to have a story that you personally are passionate about telling. Audiences can always tell when you are telling a story and it's not coming from a place within the heart. They can tell the difference between a story that's written like just purely for money versus a story that actually means something to you. And both have their merits. There's nothing wrong with telling a story specifically like to make a paycheck. Writers do that and have to do that all the time. But there's something really special about telling a story that actually comes from a place that you are deeply, deeply passionate about. Audiences will pick up on that and they will connect with your story significantly more deeply if it means something to you.
For those of you in here who are writers, if you've read Stephen King's On Writing, he has a great passage in there where he says that if the author is having fun, then the audience is most likely having fun too. And don't underestimate that element and don't dismiss it as like, oh, whatever, frou-frou. It's important.
Well, I definitely agree with everything said. From a practical standpoint, I'd like to add, too, that if you have a great idea for a story that you've been trying to make a film or a TV series or micro-series, but just don't have the funds, look at audio drama. Because it's a lot cheaper If you want to have high quality production, you're definitely going to have to spend some money, but it's a lot cheaper than film, and it's a great way to get your story and your voice out there for people to just start hearing you. And one day you might have the support system to allow you to do the film that you want to do.
Oh, I love that. That's fantastic. I heard someone drop the word characters, and for me, that's where every story starts. But I also know that every creator has a different process. So I'm curious, do you start, for those of you who are writers, do you start with the characters? Do you start with the plot? Where do you even start this story that you're creating?
That's going to depend on which story.
Tell me more. And
So-
tell me
okay.
more about that, and then tell me more about like if the type of story dictates the development of the story.
So it's a very long-winded answer. I'm going to do
Go,
part
do
of it,
it.
and then I'm going to send it off to these guys.
Do it.
But sometimes you have the idea for an overarching theme, and you decide, how am I going to put realistic people and realistic characters into this story? And then you build it in that direction. But sometimes you start off with an actual character who they themselves are fleshed out. They're the person that you're passionate about, that's the story that you want to tell. And you decide what happens to them, or what is the story that created that character in your head. So you can't just assume you're going to start with one. It's always going to be different. For every story, or even every writer, everyone's going to have a different way of approaching it. And then I'm going to let someone else go, because that was enough for me.
That wasn't long-winded. That was very good. You're good.
Yeah, I think that if you're telling a character-driven story, then obviously you want to make that character as compelling and rich as possible. But in The Phenomenon, my show, it's definitely more of a plot-driven thing, a world-driven thing. But that doesn't mean that character is something that you don't think about or that you set aside. Characters, if you do set them aside or don't make them as rich as possible, even if it's a plot-driven or a world-driven thing, it's going to feel false. So you have to make your characters as compelling and as rich as possible, even if you're not telling the most character-driven story
Yeah.
in the world.
Yes.
It's going to make your world feel more rich for it.
I want to dig into what you said. You used compelling, rich characters, and I would love the opinion of every single person on this panel. How do you create a compelling and rich character? Because I think that's what gets people addicted to your show. People love the characters. That's who the fan art is of. That's who people ship. Like, they want your characters. Shipping is real. It's so real.
So real.
It's so valid.
So good. So good. Yeah, that's key. Simple trick, just write yourself. Like, all of my characters in Marsfall are pieces of me, even like the really shitty, bad things. Are we allowed to swear? Sorry.
We swear.
But
Okay, it's after 9.
all right, we're at the adult show. Okay.
Okay.
No, but in all seriousness, that what Jared was saying, your whole world is just gonna fall flat without believable characters. And the only way to get a believable character is to write with life experience. It doesn't matter if you're 14 or 104. You have life experience to draw upon that is gonna be unique to people that are listening that haven't lived, your life and had your experiences or the experiences of people but it's going to feel real to them because they can, sympathize with it and empathize with it because it's coming from a real place inside of you. And like when we started Marsfall, we had the idea of like, all right, we want to throw a bunch of people on Mars. Like, cool, there's your premise. But then after that, we made our main characters because we're like, who's going to carry this plot along? And that's allowed us to do some really fantastical things with the plot that are like way out there. But because it's all told through the lenses of these people that you've come to know and that you believe, could be riding the train next to you, or you could be going to, NASA Academy with them, to get ready to go to Mars, that, makes us make these worlds that feel real no matter what is going on inside them. So I do think there is kind of a starting point with a premise, but then it's your characters that kind of drive that. And then let them go together and keep track of everything. Because I can't tell you how many times I watch a TV show and I'm like, oh, wow, they did a really good thing of like calling back to that character trait they established in the previous season. They really set that up well. And now that I'm a writer on a show, we do that and like, we did not set it up. I just look back at my list of like, oh yeah, John does these 3 things, so he should just do one of those again. And then people are like, wow, that's so deep. All you gotta do is just keep track of your own brain. It's a lot harder than it sounds.
All you have to do.
Yikes, keeping track of your own brain. no, that doesn't work for me. Also, to piggyback on what Eric's saying, don't just write yourself, but write the people that you know. You know, we all have people in our lives that we have met at some point. We have bosses, we have friends, family, really random crazy cousins work excellently as side characters.
I was about to say, all these people that you're killing off in your shows, should
No
I be
comment.
worried? Okay.
Listen, family members occasionally get killed off in stories, I'm just saying. Not in, well, my parents aren't here, but like still, not in my stories, but like, you know, it's a thing, people do that. And working off of experiences you've had, stories that you've heard. Also, you know, the archetypes that we have already established within various mediums of, you know, everybody's seen a film or a TV show or read a book, something of that nature, where they've got like the really rough, gruff general type. If you just give him some other characteristics and like give him a life story and that sort of a thing, suddenly he's a brand new fleshed out character based on something that we've all already experienced.
I have something to say. Oh, do you have something to say?
I was just going to say, piggybacking off of what she said, which was off of what he said.
I love this. We have like a group
it's-
piggyback.
I could not possibly just write from who I am because I don't think I'm that interesting. I think I pull from people around me. So for the White Vault, they're all based off of people I went to grad school with. And I don't hate them.
Caitlin, you murder them.
I did not hate those people,
You
but
just kill them.
they were completely authentic, completely different from me. They had their own ways of seeing the world, and I was able to take that and make these other characters with it. So I think you just need to watch people. There's that idea of just sitting on the bus and like looking at people and trying to like make up stories for them because everyone is their own person, regardless of how insular your world can feel. And yeah, that was my piggyback.
That's good. That was a good piggyback. That was very good. The thing that I want to say too. Sorry, Eric, I'm going to cut you off because I've got the big mic.
Yeah, I know you're the
And that is when I'm creating characters, you want to make sure. I think this gets overlooked a lot. You want to make sure that every character is in some way a main character, even if it's in their own mind. So like. If you think about yourself as the main character in the story that's going on right now, yeah, sure, you're the main person who's like in your own brain thinking about things, but everybody else around you is also the main character of their own story. And I like to keep that in mind as I'm writing because I feel like in a lot of fiction, the main character, the person, the protagonist, the person that we're focusing on, gets really fleshed out, has flaws, has motivation, all of that stuff. And the writer sometimes forgets that everybody else around them is not just a cheerleader who like follows them around clapping. Like they have motivations of their own. So make sure that like side characters have motivations. Maybe they don't want to follow the main character here. I mean, so please just remember that everyone in a way is a main character.
That's basically what I was going to say.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it was really good mind meld. That was
Say
good.
it- say
I
it in
liked
your way,
Yeah,
too,
that's
though.
good. What I was going to say is just make sure your character has something to do that's
Yeah.
important to the story.
Yes. Something they love, something they care about. They have a motive and a mission. Let's see. So I want to touch on the process a little bit. We talked about where do you start? Do you start with plot? Do you start with characters? But like if I want to sit down and start an audio drama, what do I do? Because there's writing. First there's brainstorming, then there's maybe writing, then there's thinking about casting. There's all sorts of things going on with all kinds of software. Clue us into what this process might look like at 10,000 feet. Ready, set, go.
I'll start because I had to do a lot of this recently for my newest project, but I tend to start, when I'm writing, I start with just an inciting incident. Just a moment or a piece of dialogue, something that happens between a couple of characters. And I sort of let the story spiral from there. I tend to build playlists of music that I will listen to as I continue to flesh the world out and see kind of who these characters are, what the mood is. And then I usually sit down and I will write a very, very vague outline. And I say very, very vague I can't even really call it an outline. That's being a little too generous. But a kind of like, these are the basic things that will arc the season, or what happens in each general episode. And from there, I tend to sit down and just kind of write my way through what I think that would be, episode to episode, and just kind of see where it goes with only the vaguest hint of what the trail ahead is going to end up looking like.
I love that you two are sitting next to each other because Caitlin.
I write the most detailed outlines in the world. I do extensive research. My outlines themselves are thousands of words for every episode, because I just want to make sure that I'm getting in every nuance. I want to make sure I'm putting in all the correct ideas for what the sound effects are going to be. So I do such detailed outlines. But I would say after you have a script, if you're going to be doing all of the sound designing and production and directing everything yourself, then before you automatically jump into starting to put it all together, just play around in the digital audio workspace that you're going to be using and get comfortable with it, because it's going to be really hard for you on my soul and on your soul to have your script ready, send it out to your actors, get these great voices back, and then you sit down at a digital audio workspace and you don't know what you're doing. And it can be this huge hurdle for some people to be able to get over that hurdle, to be able to actually produce their story. And it can lead to you just kind of casting it aside. And if you've already put so much work into writing the script and sending it out and casting and everything else, then having a little bit of familiarity with your DAW is going to mean that you don't have to look at that hurdle like it's the end of the world and the end of your project.
Yeah. And DAW, Digital Audio Workstation, that's going to be something like Audacity, which is free. That's going to be, what are some other ones? Reaper is popular. Pro Tools is expensive, but very good. I'm still on Audacity, which is free. No, I think that's fantastic.
To kind of add to that, I'm also a writer like them. You're a writer too, so it's a lot of writers up here. So if you're not a writer,
Actually, real quick, writers.
Oh, great. Okay.
Okay, production side of things, like digital. Okay, so a fair number of you still.
Awesome.
Good.
Okay, so everybody here knows their talents, and even if it wasn't one of those two things.
An actor.
Okay, great.
Actors. We don't want to forget you because we love you.
Yes. Just give us good takes. But no, I think for me, like I studied writing, and I've been directing for many years. I did not know how to do any sound production. Didn't when I came up with the idea for this. While I was co-creating it, my other two co-creators, none of us knew how to do sound production. We had a composer who thought he could just record sound effects on his iPhone. That'll go over well, right? Yeah, it's really effective. Okay, so we were in way over our heads, and we were at that soul-crushing moment where we realized, like, wow, we've written 5 episodes, and I don't know how we're going to record this or produce it. And so I found a great recording studio in New York City with top-notch engineers. It's actually Sonic Union. If any of you are looking for any post-production work on anything, please check them out if you haven't heard them. We've been working with them for 2.5 years. They are phenomenal, fantastic engineers. So that was something that shored up a deficiency for me so that I could focus more on writing and directing, and as Sarah was hinting earlier, basically doing like everything else. The one thing I don't do is sound design, but it leaves me that free time to work on the things that I know I want to work on, the things that I want to get better at that I'm already good at, as opposed to learning a new skill from scratch and trying to get it up to a skill that you've maybe been crafting for decades. So if you have the means to do that, or have other people that want to donate their services because they're looking to make something and are as eager to do it just as you, such as these engineers that we met, you can strike a really good deal and kind of fill out the rest of your team, and through that make so many more connections and meet so many more people that are going to make your show even better.
And from a producing perspective, there's definitely value to.
Mike. Sorry, speaking to the mic, you turned your head.
There's definitely value to jumping in and figuring out where you are and learning the hard way, but there's also a lot of value from day one in stepping back, understanding what your resources are, and understanding what needs to happen to get you from A to Z. a lot of things that are going to happen between your first idea and your show being done. And sometimes having that organization up front on day one, taking a step back and saying, okay, what are all of the things that need to happen to get me from here to there? And do I have the resources to do these? Do I have the skills to do these? Is my story the type of story that I'm going to be able to tell with the resources, skills, and miscellaneous things that I have? If you can formulate a plan by doing things like that, you can see where the holes are. You know, where you need to ask for help, where you need to learn something different, and you know, having that plan and knowing what that checklist is going to be, and it's going to be a million different things that's going to get you from A to Z, is going to help you get there successfully, and recognizing what those holes are along the way.
Where were you when I was starting my show? I did the trial and error route. I was that person who, so my first podcast I started back in 2014, and it's nonfiction. It's called Right Now. And I started it actually in 2013, waited a year because I was terrified of learning how to use a mixer, learning all of that stuff. Eventually realized I didn't need a mixer. Fun story. And that really kept me from that. I also, Eric, I love talking about teams, because how many people in here foresee themselves as doing everything? How many people in here foresee themselves having a team? You know what? Either way, I'll take it. I'll just raise my hand for everything. No, I love that. So I do everything myself. I don't have a team, and it's hard. It's hard. It's hard. For every 30-minute episode of Girl in Space I create, it takes me between 60 and 150 hours. It's a lot. But if you have a team, then, you know, you're writing, maybe that only takes you 20 hours for an episode, or what? I don't want to underestimate you.
I don't know. I don't want to keep track of that.
He doesn't keep track of that. It's too depressing. But whether you have a team that can support you, that's good. Or if you want to be a solo creator, just like you said, for the phenomenon, just yes. Oh my gosh, absolutely.
But like you said, just jumping in and learning things the hard way. When you're making that list of all the things that you need to do, you don't know the first time what all of those things are going to be, and how you learn that is jumping in and is learning the hard way.
Yes.
You know, so yes, there's value to being organized, but there's also tons of value to just going for it too.
Yeah,
'Cause
that's
how
true.
you learn.
I've learned a lot. I've grown as a person. I'm seeing a therapist now.
I'm also going to throw out there that regardless of whether or not you are doing it on your own, are doing it with a team, have the full checklist and know everything that you don't know, or you're just diving in completely blind, it is going to take you twice as long at least than you think it's going to take you. Things are going to go wrong at pretty much every single stage. The way you actually end up with an audio drama is you just kind of keep pushing through every single one of those hurdles. And there's going to be a lot, and it's going to be frustrating, but it is entirely possible to do. Just keep in mind that it can be a huge endeavor, and I'm just having a flashback to the very first audio drama that I made, which was Here Be Dragons, and you will have problems with plot holes in your script. You may have problems with finding actors or losing actors, composers. It's a whole laundry list of things that can potentially go wrong. But I think so long as you kind of keep your eye on the goal and start to learn what all of those little things, it's every single hiccup along the way, so long as you keep those in mind as you keep pushing forward, the next time they pop up, you've already learned something and you know how to jump over that next hurdle. So it feels a little bit less like a hurdle, maybe slightly more of a stumbling block. Then you're like, oh, I see that pothole coming up, here's how I circumvent it.
I love that. And actually, that's a question that I was planning on asking you is, this is perfect. So I want to hear from each of you, maybe your funniest or most soul-crushing failure/mistake that has happened to you in your audio drama journeys. Ooh. I like that you just go for the mic. Just do it.
I once had a bunch of the text for the White Vault translated into the wrong language. and we didn't notice until way later. And the actor had recorded it in the language it was translated into, and we went back and I read it, and I was like, no. No, that was supposed to be a different language and a different character. And it's just one of those things where, because we're a duo, we're not a big team, we're not a single person, we're a duo, and sometimes we just have, we have 3 shows, so sometimes we get really busy and we forget things, and things get overlooked. So yeah, we had to make a lot of apologies and then send out some late lines and say, hey, please read this.
Please help me.
When we were first creating Here Be Dragons, we were recording, at the time we were just starting to be on the verge of graduating. And so we went to our college and we were like, hey, can we use some of the recording space? And they were like, yeah, absolutely. So we were all signed up, ready to go, had the cast, scripts, everything. Then they tore down their sound booth.
No.
And they were like, don't worry, a new one is on the way. Well, that sound booth got sort of lost in transit. It was on a boat, and it just didn't arrive, which I find a deep, deep irony in this, because we needed that sound booth to pretend that we were on a boat.
I was supposed to say Jordan.
The whole thing takes place on a submarine, and we were like, cool. The method of us being on this boat is actually on a boat. And it didn't come for, I think it was 2.5, 3 months into our already set and very tight recording schedule, because we had to record around all of the voiceover classes and things that were happening in the area. So we ran to B&H very, very quickly and bought a microphone, and we recorded the first half of the series on my bedroom floor.
Bedroom floor, good recording space, closets.
No.
Oh, no, that was a bad one?
No,
Oh,
get
that
a
was bad?
closet, get any other space that you can. Do not record on your bedroom floor. You will regret it so much.
I'm trying to be empowering here.
Okay, but who hasn't recorded something in their closet? You fancy New Yorkers with studios.
Man, must be
Our
nice.
studio apartments.
Bedroom floors, closets.
It's a bedroom floor and a studio floor. Really think about it.
One of our actors just throws a really big duvet over his head.
I've done that, and it works. A big duvet, a big comforter, a big quilt. If you need a sound dampener, it works.
On an unrelated note, I cannot recommend Sonic Union services enough.
Are you getting paid for this?
No.
Are any of it? No, I'm kidding.
Okay. That's another.
We'll talk about that in a second.
So what was it? Most embarrassing?
So you're
Soul
just,
crushing.
yeah, soul crushing or funny, just some kind of failure that you've had to overcome, or some kind of horrible mistake that was made, perhaps
Yeah.
by you.
Yeah, there's one. Okay, so yeah, we were prepping for season 2, and I was also prepping to get married, which was very exciting. And I got married, and that was great. And then after the wedding, the day after, I was like, cool. So we have 2.5 months to write season 2 before the recording session, because I was busy, doing the wedding. So
Like you do.
One, I do not recommend writing 9 episodes in 2.5 months that are half hour plus each, because that was horrible for us, and by us I mean me, because my co-writer had just started a full-time teaching job. So that was pretty soul-crushing to live through and then go straight into the recording session where I was printing the scripts the morning of.
Oh my God.
Then we recorded the whole thing, and we finished recording the final episode, and we're having a little after recording kind of hangout, and my engineer is like, yeah, I don't know how to bring this up, but I think you need to rewrite the finale. Because I actually only written it in 2 days because of the whole, post-wedding rush. And it was like a skeleton outline. So I took the criticism, I swallowed my pride, and we rewrote not only the finale, but also parts of the last 4 episodes, and we got back in the booth for one crazy day and banged out all the new material. And yeah, it was certainly soul-crushing at the time, but I'm so happy with the finale that we got for this season. It was so much better. It was a big lump of pride to swallow, but when you're on a team, you have to trust the people you're working with. And he definitely made the right call. And yeah, so I guess soul-crushing experience with it. Happy ending.
Thank you for, this is so good. Thank you for sharing all of these. Jared, I want to hear yours too.
Mine's not soul-crushing per se, but it is definitely something you learn along the way. We record our entire show in person with our large cast, and we live in New York. We turned our living room into a recording studio, essentially with sound foam, plywood, everything to get a bunch of people in there, make it sound good, go through these scenes with our actors. But we live in a apartment here in New York. We have neighbors. They live through the walls, through the ceilings. They can hear a lot that goes on in our apartment. And
I'm sorry, that laugh was awesome.
we have a very violent show, and we have very good actors. And there were a lot of moments when our actors are going through scenes where they're getting brutally killed, when I was extremely nervous that we were going to have the police called on us by our neighbors, who, maybe were a little concerned with what was going on next door or downstairs. Thankfully, we never had the police called on us, and I don't know if that's a testament to our walls or our neighbors not caring what's going
That's
on
a little
next
scary,
door.
actually.
But it was definitely something I didn't think about before we started recording that I was acutely aware of while we were recording the scenes.
I love that. I don't know if this is appropriate to share, but I'm going to share it anyway because it's Friday night and we're in New York. I didn't know going in that, so a lot of people get hurt in my show. And you know where I'm going with this. Yes, and so sometimes you write in your script oh, this character is groaning in pain. And this character is maybe screaming in pain. And when you have your actors send you 10-minute long clips of them going, and you're just sitting there in your chair and my face is turning red and I'm this sounds like sex noises and I'm so uncomfortable right now. So keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Next question.
Anytime you ask someone to groan or moan, it will sound like sex. Heavy breathing.
Yes.
Also
Heavy
sounds
breathing.
Like sex. Think very, very carefully about when and where you use this in your audio drama. Your sound designer will have to sit there and listen to it if you're not.
Oh, and it's 10 minutes straight and it's just...
And our actors know. They know it sounds like that. And they make so many jokes. And Travis, who's my husband and our producer, he's sitting there and he's like, they know. And they're making fun of me for it. They're making fun of me for it as I'm splicing out groans of pain and heavy breathing. And they are making fun of me for it.
Oh, these people are champions. Our actors, I love them. They're amazing. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I want to switch tacks just a little bit. Sometimes, you're going to laugh, sometimes podcasting is not always easy. I know. It gets difficult sometimes. And so I have a whole bunch of questions I want to ask you about pushing through and staying motivated. But I also, let's do that one first and then I'll go to my next question. So when you are just in your 8th month of rewrites for your season finale, or I'm not speaking from experience, but I am. Or when it's getting really difficult, how do you keep going? I'm asking for myself.
It's definitely a battle. It's a real hard thing to be self-motivated as a creative.
Yes.
It's extra hard to be self-motivated as a creative who is not getting paid. Because this is not a profitable industry yet. Some of the biggest shows are certainly profitable. But if you're looking to get into this industry purely for the money, I advise against it. To be frank, there are people that do that. I've taken plenty of workshops where people had those delusions ripped away from them. So in all seriousness, this is not like a moneymaker game. So, and on top of that, it's kind of hard to stay motivated as a creator who's actively spending money to create.
Yeah.
'Cause that's another reality of any independent production that you're going to be producing, whether it's for this medium or something else. The thing, though, about a battle, about war, about this creative slog that we're all in, and we have to show up every day and be warriors, because you can go in and have the crap kicked out of you, but at least you showed up.
Yeah.
And you got something done. Maybe you got one word written on the page. Maybe you hired that character actor that was elusive. Maybe you just answered an email. I mean, it takes a lot, especially living here. I mean, my wife and I moved to New Jersey. It's still not good enough, to get away from the hubbub of Manhattan. But, this city is draining and our professions are naturally draining. And the real only person that's going to keep moving you forward, even with the supportive team, is yourself, because you hold all the power. So you have the power to make it happen, but you need to keep talking to the other part of you that has the power to not make it happen, and make sure that you strike a good balance to stay healthy and make it happen.
I kind of want you to just drop the mic after that,
don't.
but also don't do that.
I don't think we can afford
Don't
to
do
pay for that.
No. We're podcasters.
I can't attest to the staying healthy part, but the way that our schedule works for the shows that we make, because we make 3 ongoing shows, we have to release every 2 weeks. So even on days where I don't think I can write anything, I still have to try. I still have to try and do something, because I know I have deadlines. And I am my own boss, and I am not a great boss, but I know that what I'm trying to create is not only something that, I've created. I came up with it. It's my story. It's my baby that I want out there in the world. But I also know that now I'm at the point where my work does bring in some money, and I think of it as, okay, so if I want to keep doing this, if I want to pursue what is my dream and my goal, I'm doing this for myself, even if I am exhausted, even if I am working really hard. But for me, if I need a break, I go on a dog walk, and I remember, hey, I'm doing this so that I can work from home, so I can spend more time with my family and my dog, and I can go on these walks in the middle of the day, and I can kind of make my life my own instead of working from 9 to 5 for somebody else. I work 9 to 5 and more for myself. So
Yeah, it's kind of a question of priority.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I just remember what makes me happy, and me sitting at home and being able to look to my side and see my dog, and then know that my husband's upstairs. Like, I'm choosing to work that hard, and I'm choosing to push through feeling bad about certain parts of what I'm doing. And I'm just working on maybe something else today. Maybe I'm doing marketing today, or maybe today's the day that I do answer the emails, or maybe today is the day that I outline a different story instead of working on the script. Because no matter what I'm doing, I know that it's something for my job, it's something for my company, which again is just me and my husband making podcasts in our house. So, but it affords me, through the pressure, to have the life that I want. So I'm willing to be a little bit stressed out, or a lot stressed out. It's mostly a lot.
Yeah, along the same lines as Caitlin, when we're in season, we release weekly. So what gets us to push through is schedules, disciplined time management, but also for me, it's avoiding burnout. And disciplined time management means working when it's time to work, but it also means not working when it's time to not work. When it's writing time for me, it's writing time. If I write a bunch of pages, or if I write one word, that's what I'm doing during that time. When that time's over, I'm not writing anymore. It's time to not do that, to think about something else, because if you don't schedule time off, if you don't make yourself take a break sometimes, you're going to get burned out. So disciplined time management does go both ways in terms of getting stuff done, but also keeping yourself kind of in the frame of mind, mentally and physically, to get that stuff done.
I'll tend to write, or I'll try to think about the person that I'm writing the story for. And I have a tendency to write to various versions of myself. A lot of the time I find that I'm writing the stories that I wished I could have read when I was a kid. But I find that writing specifically for someone will help me to push through those moments when I just don't know what to write, don't want to write, when it's just overwhelming and awful. Because there's always someone out there in the world who needs the story that you're telling. There will always be someone who wants to hear what you have to say, but they will never hear what you have to say if you don't say it. So it's really, really important to just kind of keep that person in mind as kind of a little bit of a guiding light. That's how I tend to push through, is to focus on one person, because it's easier sometimes to write for one person than it is to write for the masses.
How am I lucky enough to be moderating a panel with all of you wonderful, smart people? Oh my gosh. I love you all so much. Thank you. Yes, these people are amazing. They're so amazing. One of the questions I wanted to ask is, why are you doing this? Jordan, I feel like you've already answered that question, unless you have something else to add.
I write to put a little bit more adventure into the world. I think there's so much beauty and mystery and things that we don't understand, and so many things that I personally am probably never going to get to explore. I don't anticipate anybody knocking on my door and saying, hey, want to go to space? Want to go to the bottom of the ocean? Want to go back in time and like see a dinosaur?
Yes.
And I very much would like to do all of those things. But until, Hagrid shows up, still waiting on that Hogwarts letter, it's fine. But, until that shows up, I'll make it happen myself.
Good. Oh my goodness. I mean, you can.
I don't know. When I first started writing a podcast, I was still in university. I was still in graduate school. I did not know this is what I was going to be doing, and well, here I am. So now when I'm writing, it's because I always wanted to do something creative, and I tried a ton of different things. I was actually like a fantasy cartographer professionally for a few years and did illustrations and used to come to conventions and sell things, and that was what I did for a few years after graduate school, because nobody here in the US will hire me for what I actually have a degree in. So, and then I just decided that I could get more of my mind out into the world and affect more people and tell more stories through words and through podcasting than I could through art, because someone has to physically walk by a booth or go to a website and see my artwork. And that's true for podcasting too. Someone has to download it and listen to it, but it's such a larger reach. And I love the idea that I can, without ever having met someone, maybe freak them out a little bit.
She writes horror, if this isn't clear.
And I want to affect people. I want to make them feel like maybe they're a little bit uncomfortable, because being uncomfortable, being scared, that's what I love about horror. That's what I love about dark stories. It's no matter how crappy your life can seem at a certain point, if you're thinking about something terrifying that you just heard, or something you watched, or a movie or a comic book that you read, for that like tiny instant, you're not worrying about all the crap in your own life, and you're worrying about the crap in that character's life. For as long as they're alive.
How about you two? Why do you create? Why do you do this? Don't egg them on, Jordan.
I just really like making things.
Awesome.
So when I have an idea that I think is going to be fun to make, be it by myself or with my friends, I just want to do that. And ultimately, the goal is always make something that I'm gonna like myself. And so, or if I'm making things with friends or creative partners, make something that we're gonna like. And I think that if we make something and when it's done, we can look at it or listen to it and we can think, hey, this is pretty cool, we love this. Even if no one else ever experiences it, that's a win, So that's kind of ultimately why I like making these things, just because I like making things. But podcasts are something that you can put out there and other people can enjoy too. So obviously you want to make something that you like, but when other people get to enjoy it too, that's kind of even extra special. Yeah. I just like making things.
It's a very interesting question.
Thank you.
Yeah, and also you said no difficult questions tonight, so.
I lied.
Yeah. Or maybe it was something else. Okay, maybe I was just hearing things.
That was at dinner when I forgot his name and called him Marsfall, so.
It's true. I'm Mr. Marsfall. Yeah, I don't know how to really answer this in a way. So I write Marsfall because I have to. And I'm trying to find a way to articulate in my head, because I've always just been satisfied with, like, I do it because I have to do it. I have to tell this story, like this very specific one that I'm working on. And I don't know, I never really knew why. I just knew it had to be done. And I studied music. I'm a trombonist. I've been playing for 2 decades and more. I write music. I make my primary income that way. And I had this idea about 5-6 years ago for this amazing story. It came to me. Everybody believes different things about the universe. I think there is something out there that, there's like a wavelength that we can connect to. And I kind of view my writer's brain or my creative brain is like a receiver, basically, and information is coming in. And almost like when you're, making a documentary or something where you film all this raw footage and then it gets pared down. For every minute of planet Earth, there's probably 100 hours of footage that got, turned into. And I think as a fiction writer, you need to look at your raw ideas as the raw footage. And I do these things called free writes, which writers probably, a lot of you know about it, where you just make yourself write. And you have to write everything there. Probably a lot of it's going to be cut. You might get a few words out of it. But I kind of view that as like the raw footage that you're paring down for the documentary. And so for me, when I had this idea for a show, it originally started as an opera, because it was coming from my music training, and quickly spiraled out of control into a 3-movie trilogy, and then into a 3-season show, and then a 5-season show. Also, this show is not Marsfall, for the record.
Oh, okay. I was like, I need the Marsfall opera.
Yeah. Well, basically, what this did is I knew it had to be for TV, so I went and studied screenwriting through a few independent workshops and private teachers, and then started doing it because I had to do it. There was this story that came to me, and the only way I could get to that story was by going back a little further and discovering this other story that became Marsfall. And like Marsfall is going to build to this other one, to this other one, to this other one, and so much, in fact, that I actually have a 35-year plan, and I'm almost done with year 3. So it's been modified. Don't give me too much credit. But I think there is this weird thing, for me at least, where it's like I don't get the satisfaction out of doing something else that's like, this is like my life's purpose. For some reason, I'm getting this information for a story that I think is critical because I am afraid for humanity. And I'm afraid of what our technological running rampant AI development happening much, much faster. Much, much, much faster than people are really giving it its due. Climate change is a major threat. Planetary colonization is a real possibility. And these things are much, 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 much closer than I think the average person assumes. So if I can get stuff written down and people at least like me are resonating with it, maybe they tell a friend that's a little different from them, and then that friend, it resonates with them on a different level, and we get out there and we get the word out. And so that's what I feel like I have to do, and that's why these stories are here.
I need to hear an opera episode.
Yeah. So make that happen.
I mean, our composer's pretty dope, so we can have
totally
him whip
do
up
it.
something.
You could do it.
I can't do opera.
Until you try, right? You don't know. You could do opera.
I got her to do Mandarin. She can try anything.
I want to leave time. How many of you have questions for our panelists? Oh, a few. Okay, let's go ahead and make the shift to audience questions. I don't know if this is the kind of situation where we have a runner because I think our mics are wired. So let's see. Raise your hands if you have a question again. Okay, let's see. The blonde right here who I bumped into earlier. That's okay. You don't have to tell us that. Go ahead and stand up and make sure you project your voice.
I have a background in creative writing and audio production for electronic ambient music.
Woo.
I find that my problem is really meshing the two in a way that audio drama kind of calls for. It's more of a production question. What would you say the production essentials toolbox would be for an audio drama? Whether it's plugins, whether it's a DAW, whether it's external equipment, what do you feel every starting audio drama writer should have?
That's a fantastic question. So it's pretty much, what is your production toolkit? Eric, I'm looking at you.
Why is everybody looking at me? Have I not talked about Sonic Union enough? That's my toolkit.
I'll take it. I mean, I do some of the production, but we definitely have Travis, who's our sound guy. So I would say if you don't have a DAW already, find one that you feel comfortable with, that you feel like that. Look them up. There's a lot of differences. There's different price points too. So whatever you feel comfortable both with that, because I mean, I don't even feel comfortable with some of the price points, and I do this professionally now. Find one that you feel comfortable with that works with how complicated you think your stories are going to become.
Yes.
Because if you start using a program that only allows you to do like 30 tracks at a time, and suddenly you're like 45 and up, and then suddenly it's like, oh no, everything's not working. Have an interface, and go ahead and invest in a quality mic if you're going to be doing any recording yourself at home, unless you are the kind of person who wants to invest in going to a studio. We have our version of a studio in our house where we've kind of like padded some stuff, and we put down soundproofish floors. So hardware, that's what I would recommend. The interface, we use a Scarlett, and it's oh my gosh, we had one that was an older model. It lasted years. So think about it as like a one-time investment, at least for the next 5 years or 6 years or so. Once you get past that, if you are the kind of person who requires a digital version of your mind, I physically write everything down on paper. I have a little notebook where I write down what's due when, blah, blah, blah. But some people really like to use things like Slack or Monday and stuff like that so that they can track what everything is, because it does get very complicated the more, if you have a mix and master guy, but you said that you have creative writing and sound in your background, so you are way ahead of the game as far as we're concerned. Were there any specifics?
Well, just I heard that you were using, some of you used Audacity. I use Logic Pro.
Oh, perfect.
Okay.
You're good.
Yeah,
It's my thing.
You good.
that'll be fine.
But, you know, for anybody who's starting, I feel like because these different DAWs vary so much and the different equipment varies so much, you know, I just wanted to hear if you could make a toolkit for a beginner, what would be in it? What would you put in that box, essentially?
Does the beginner have a lot of money, or is the beginner like, yeah, broke beginners?
Let's be realistic.
Let's be realistic. If you're a broke beginner,
A box of things that make noises.
yeah.
I'm
If you're doing
completely
your own,
honest, we have like boxes of weird stuff we've collected. We have like this enormous spring because if you hit it right, it sounds like wind. Like we don't use a lot of sound design plugins. We do use Tovu Sound for footsteps. I think that's what it's called. But almost all of the audio design tools we use, I know some people do it digitally, but Travis makes all of those sounds. The sound of people's clothing moving, the sound of the teeth in the box, everything is
the teeth in the box. Listen to the White Vault. Sorry.
that's all something that Travis has physically like brought together. Like I think the teeth in the box are actually rat bones.
You know, like you have lying around casually in your kitchen.
We found them in our floorboards.
See, she's a horror writer. How perfect is this?
Here's an idea from our podcast.
Hey. So,
Did I?
also, okay, so Travis and Caitlin are magical creatures who create their own Foley. So they do their own sound effects. If you're like me and you don't know how to do that stuff and you're a one-person shop, for sound effects especially, I recommend checking out freesound.org. freesound.org, spelled exactly like it sounds. For each of the sound effects that you download, make sure you check the licensing and that you credit people appropriately, just because you're good people, and give credit where credit is due. And that's actually just a really fun resource too. So if you don't have access to like a boom mic or to whatever it is you guys use and a box full of teeth and rat bones, check out freesound.org. It's a great resource, especially for beginners.
Also, if you don't have a composer handy, Free Music Archive.
Yes.
But also definitely check copyright licenses on those particular things because that can get a little confusing, but it is a really great resource just to have music. Like, you can get your theme there. You can get things that are just ambient music to go underneath scenes and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and Freesound has some ambient music. I really like, I don't know if any of you have heard of Kevin MacLeod. He does a ton of what's called PodSafe music, free music that's free to download. It doesn't need any accreditation, and he's over at Incompetech. Is it .com?
Oh, I don't remember.
It's either Incompetech. Okay, INCOMPETECH. Incompetech.net. Thank you. I feel like I'm at a spelling bee. That's another fabulous resource. The YouTube audio library also has free music that is often copyright free.
And if you're going to be really in-depth and you think you're going to be trying to take your show and pitch it to other people, and you want to make sure that you have the rights to use whoever you're working with, so you can go online and there are already pre-drafted contracts that you can download and then modify to fit whatever it is that you're creating. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. I want to be careful about the time. Let's see. Okay, I see a beautiful person in a light heather gray shirt. Okay.
Okay, so my question, I think, like, as far as, like, my partner and I, we're both, like, pretty familiar with the creative process. We're both writers. He has sound design experience, so we're at the point where we, like, are scripting and we're, like, we're fleshing out our season, but what I think that I'm kind of the most nervous about is the marketing aspect. So, like, once you have the product, once you're there, how do you get the word out? Like, how do you get it to, like, catch fire and really get people to hear what you're doing? Sarah?
They're laughing because I was in marketing. I was a marketer for 10 years before I left my job to podcast full time. We just need to get coffee at some point, and we'll go. The short story, and I could do a whole panel on podcast marketing.
Please do. Yeah, please do.
Okay, so no, I'm kidding. That's the 10 to 11 in this room is podcast marketing. So stay after. I'm kidding. I won't do that to you, Brian. I'm sorry. We love you. Brian's like, I'm gonna murder you. Your job as a podcaster is, is marketing a dirty word for any of you? I was a creative, I gotta say, I was a creative writing major and a poetry major, which is really lucrative. And to me, I was like, I'm never gonna sell out, I'm never gonna market. And now it's literally what I do, aside from podcasting. And so there's this really happy medium where you can think of marketing as it's the bridge you're building between people who really wanna hear your story and your story. And so you're building that bridge. One great way to do that is through community. And so become part of the community. One of the things that you never want to do in marketing is selling. Like, sales and marketing are two very different things. What you want to do is marketing. You don't want to sell. And so when you're marketing, you're joining a community, you're sharing ideas, you are being authentic, you are being yourself, you're sharing the message of your show. You probably should have this sounds corny, but having a mission statement for your show, and making sure that comes through. Sorry, I have like a course for podcast. I'm going through, like, what's in the marketing section, and let's see. But I think the most important aspect is the community. So joining, there's a lot of podcasters on Twitter. There's a lot of podcasters on Instagram, and there's a lot of podcasters on Tumblr right now. And so joining one of those communities, and I feel like I'm going to tell you two tricks that I use. They're not tricks. I'm going to tell you two methods that I use. One is called the 80-20 rule. So 80% of the time, you are giving. You are giving good things. You are giving value. You are giving things that matter. 20% of the time, you can take. So listen to my show. I have a new episode out, or I have a show that's coming soon. But 80% of the time, you need to be like, you guys, the White Vault is amazing, and you need to be listening to it. That will help build your community. And once people start seeing you talk about their shows, they're going to be like, who's this? And then those creators will share your show with their audience. And it just becomes this really, really meaty, I don't even know what I'm adjectiving. I'm a writer and a marketer. So yes, the 80-20 rule is absolutely crucial. And that applies especially to social media. I don't remember what the other tip I was going to give you was. because I'm a bad person.
So I've spent a lot of time learning from you.
Thank you.
And learning from podcasts and books and talking to a lot of other people. And the 4 main keys that I've come up with, just single words that I try to remember when I'm thinking about, okay, what am I going to do today to help get my show out there to the world, is character. So who are you? What are you telling people about yourself? What is the brand and the story that you're trying to show people? Authenticity. If you lie to someone, they're going to know. They're just going to know. They have this innate feeling. Just be yourself and show them the story you've created, and show them your true, authentic enthusiasm. Community, which we talked about, yes.
It's important.
And consistency, which is the last one, which is honestly very hard to do. But if you're creating a show and you're going to be doing it in seasons and coming out once a week for a while, or every 2 weeks like I do, or some people do like once a month, as long as you are consistent, people will remember how it is that you're doing your show, and they'll remember, oh, they've tried, they are consistent on their own schedule, and that's important. So those are the 4 that I try to remember. Sometimes I forget.
Yeah. Yeah. No, those are fantastic principles. And I remembered what my other thing was, and that is know your audience. Know your audience. I'm not talking about like demographics like, oh, it's a 20-year-old female living in Queens. It's more of, where are these people located digitally and physically? So just so you can meet them where they are. That's really important to know. And so I like to focus a little bit less on the classic demographics, like, oh, my main listeners are in Kansas. Unless you have a show about like what's happening today in Kansas, then you probably do want to focus on Kansas. But you want to know like, oh, are these people who are runners? Are they people who have pets? Are they people who are hanging out in this like cool beer forum? Just get to know who your audience is, because at the end of the day, you're making your show for you. And I really like what Eric said about needing to make the show, but you're also making your show for them. It's like a two-way street, and focusing too much on the pushing on what I want can really turn off your audience. So you need to invite them into that space as well. It's 10 o'clock, but I'm not going to run away immediately. Okay, Purple Hat, yes.
Thank you.
Hey, Purple Hat.
Your podcasts are self-produced. You're
Yes.
entrepreneurs and artists. Can you talk about the practical difference and the creative difference between what you're doing and doing something for Gimlet or Audible?
Has anybody got those gigs yet? Because I'm looking for those gigs.
So,
I mean, do
so
you have to go out and pitch something? to
yes.
Audible,
Well,
Gimlet, and
Yes.
you can, and the landscape is rapidly changing. But I feel like, do you want to talk about that, or should I?
I mean, I can kind of do like a quick, a lot of the times with larger companies like Audible, like Gimlet, you would either need to already be within the company, or you need to pitch them something, and you need to have a very clear set out pitch deck. It's sort of like when you're pitching a TV show, you need to have a show Bible that is set up that will tell them absolutely every single thing they need to know. And then you have to go and have meetings with people. It's a lot of networking in order to do that from the outside, trying to get in.
Yes. You can also start from a place of creating. So what I did was I created my show, and then all of a sudden I had people saying like, can we buy this? Can we buy this? And that, for me, it was easier for me to do that than it was for me to stand in front of some executives and try to pitch something that I hadn't created yet. And so knowing what you like to do, if you love the idea of like pitching, then like totally go that route. But I don't know, I've found success, and I feel like we've all found success by creating, and then creating something, marketing it well, and then having people come to us. And that's, I don't know, I have a lot to say about this. I'm sorry. The other thing I want you to be very, very cautious with is if you're partnering with a company, make sure you understand whose intellectual property your work will end up as. Please be very careful about that.
Gimlet signed with the Writers Guild, so you're a lot more protected there than you were before.
But Gimlet still owns, yeah, and they will still own your show.
But there are protections.
But there, yes, right. And so it gets into this whole thing of just make sure you know what you want out of it. Because if you're fine like selling your IP, then that's fantastic too. So like it's kind of what you want out of it.
And I would recommend, if you're in a position where you're like go into Gimlet or Audible, and you want to figure out stuff, but call the Writers Guild.
Yeah.
Because they really do want to make, all these companies signatories to protect all of us.
Are you a WGA member?
Kind of.
All right. The actress in the front had a question, and then I think I think that's it. But I'm staying after. If you have a question for me, I'll hang out. I just don't want to take up Brian's time.
And we
We'll
brought
be hanging out.
stickers.
Okay. So yes.
Okay, thanks so much.
Yeah.
I just, for one real quick second, I just wanted to say, everything you guys are talking about really is, because I produce, I direct, I act, I've done a lot of stuff in New York City theater and all of that. But what you guys are talking about the authenticity and about all of it, is what I talk about to my acting students, what I talk about when I'm directing, so I think it's an overall artistic, creative medium, and you guys are doing this in this field and bringing that beauty to it. But there are people, when they create other in the visual, that they're trying to do the same thing that you're doing. So I think it's really great for us to hear that, who haven't gone that route yet, but really desire to, like myself. My question is, besides the Audible and blah, 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 how the hell do you get heard? You record it, you make your show, you write it, you record it, all that jazz, I dig it. But then, where do I send it? How do I get it online? I'm totally stupid about that.
You're not stupid. Don't ever say that. You're not stupid. Basically, you record it, you get an MP3. So what you'll do is you'll record it. It'll probably be in a WAV file, all of that stuff. You'll end up with an MP3. The MP3 you're going to upload to your media host. So you're going to need a media host. Ones I recommend are Libsyn, and that's Libsyn, which is a paid host. And I could tell you all about the differences between paid and free hosts and what you're paying for and why you should do what. But that's another panel for another day. So I would advise Libsyn. I also suggest Podbean. Are there any others that you would suggest?
I would not suggest SoundCloud.
Do not host your podcast on SoundCloud. Do not host your podcast on SoundCloud. They are not a podcasting platform. There's so many bad things that they have done to podcasters. They have a copyright infringement algorithm that if it thinks that your podcast is like copyrighted by someone else, or if it has a piece of copyrighted music in it, they will pull your feed down and there is no recourse. You will lose your subscribers. It is strict. I have had to help several podcasters with this when they needed to find a new emergency host. So please host with a podcast host. Podbean is free. Libsyn is $5 a month to $20 a month.
Podbean's not free.
Podbean is not free.
But it's cheap.
It's cheap. I lied. Squarespace, if you have a Squarespace website, they offer podcast hosting. What am I forgetting?
No, I think you actually covered it.
Okay, good.
And just be careful. Anything beyond any hosting services beyond those ones we just mentioned, some of them do have language about owning your IP and other things like that. I'm not even going to name them, but you'd be surprised that some of the really big ones have that. So please read everything carefully before you agree to go with a media hosting service. But I use Podbean. I know all y'all use Libsyn, right?
Yeah.
So highly recommend both of those.
Yeah, they're very good, very trustworthy. Once you upload it to your media host, your media host will generate an RSS feed. And that's how the magic of podcasting works. So your RSS feed is going to be a URL, and that URL is going to end with .rss. So for me, it's like sarahwarner.com/girlinspace.rss or whatever. And then that's what you submit to iTunes or any other podcast distributor. So you'll submit a lot of podcatchers, like Pocket Casts, they draw their RSS feeds from iTunes. So really, I suggest that people submit, and this is getting into the weeds, sorry, directories like iTunes, and you would go through, just Google, how do I submit a podcast to iTunes, and it'll walk you through the process. That's the main one right now. You will also want to do, the second up and coming one is Spotify. You will want your podcast on Spotify. I get at least 30% of my listens through there. Pandora is also now accepting podcast submissions. Each of these has a separate application that you need to fill out. And I feel like Pandora even had a contract that I had to sign.
Yeah.
Because they do put ads into your show and you have to sign away stuff. So yes, submit it to iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, What am I forgetting?
Stitcher.
Stitcher.
I mean, like, you can.
You can.
It's not a good play. There's a bunch of
There's a bunch of them that I wouldn't waste my time on because like 1% of your listens are going to come through there. And then once you submit your RSS feed, your show will start showing up in all of those places. And then all you have to do is market it. But that's how you get it out there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's an excellent question. Okay, we're gonna let this gentleman enjoy his evening, and we're gonna let you enjoy your evening. If you want, we are still available for extra questions. I hope that you've enjoyed hearing a little bit about the trials and tribulations and great fun that is audio drama. I love that you're all here. Thank you so much. Listen to our shows. Yay!